Hello, BookTube. It's Friday, and it's time for Friday Reads. I've had a strange reading week this week. It's sort of been kind of fractious. Um, I've been I haven't had the internet, so I should have had lots of time to read, but which I have. But it's not been sort of reading that I more or less want to do. Um, it's some reading that I've downloaded or was sent a whole bunch of PDFs. It's a doing possibility of some training, but it's documents that are just poorly written, and it makes my eyes spin and blurry because the way I'm reading it off the tablet and the laptop. But I still have continued to read, and we'll start out with the novel by Michael Schmidt. It's a buddy read with Amy at the Dusty Bookshelf and Hannah at Hannah's Books. And it's a very slow read. We're reading a chapter a week, and each chapter is quite short. Uh, Amy has done her Friday reads, and she did a very concise sort of wrap up of where we are with the book, and much better than I did last week. I tend to overcomplicate things, so I'll try not to do that again now. But it's called the novel a biography. Schmidt in the introduction try sort of defines the novel, but he uses the as a main thing is Oxford um, the OED, the Oxford English Dictionary's definition, and then just picks it apart and destroys it. And then comes up and says, well, you could say this about today's novel X, Y, and Z, and then sort of throws that out as well because it doesn't fit. And basically, he's saying that once you write it down, once you try to confine it, there's problems to it. So the definition of novel is something, and there's exceptions to everything. So he goes on and he uses the Travels of John Mandeville as the first thing, sort of a proto novel in the first chapter, and then second chapter he starts saying it's more developing novel, and he uses Fox's Martyrs as the main discussion there, and with a peripheral discussion of a couple other, but the other one that he goes in a little detail is Mallory's Le Morte d'Arthur. And he basically says that that's when the novel started, or everything starts in the medieval period. And he uses Fox's Martyrs, and he doesn't call it this but I would say it's it must be proto novel. You could use that term in his way, because it's like it's factual, but there's also made up stuff to dramatize and to make a point. And this is where he's saying it starts, and it also fits in with religion, about the Protestantism, and it helps that, and vice versa. But I have a problem with this because he doesn't define the novel like hard rules. They're very soft, and he's non-committal on it. And then he explains why Fox's Martyrs he thinks is an early novel, but he discounts everything else that came before that. He says, "Oh, others have tried to look for the novel in ancient Babylon and elsewhere." Well, yeah, because his definition works for that material as well. So why not include that? Well, if he did, it would be twice the size or three times the size. But besides that, it's like, why don't you include that material? Because he does say that verse novels are legitimate. So that means the Iliad and the Odyssey novels under those terms, under his terms, and even Herodotus histories. And there's Egyptian material, mostly from the New Kingdom, that are stories that are made up stories. They are fiction, and far as I know, they were viewed as fiction. And some varying lengths. And then you've got all the, like, well, you got Gilgamesh, say, for instance. Is that he discounts anything from China because there are early novels there that are medieval. He might get into those because, well, there's several that are 14th century, and I think there's some of the 10th century, but so I don't think he will. And then there's, but he might get to it. He might get to The Dream of the Red Chamber, which was, I believe, 18th century, as well as Tale of the Genji, which is 18th century Japanese. So he might get to those eventually. But it's just, my big question mark is, why not those? Why, he doesn't really commit to say why. He doesn't commit to say this is a novel. I can understand that because it's an impossible thing to define, because as he says, once you define it, it doesn't work. There's so many exceptions to that rule. But anyway, it is a fascinating read, and I'm enjoying it. It makes me think. I just cripped up a cover here. Other reading that I've been doing is, I started this other film book. It's a very short one, film culture series by, is it Academic Press, I think? Amsterdam University Press, sorry. It's Transition, Transformation, Victor Seastrom in Hollywood, 1923 to 30. And he's going to go through all the 9 films that he made. I think it was 9 in Hollywood from 23 to 30. But the first several chapters are about Seastrom, originally in Sweden, and then his transportation and putting roots down in Hollywood, and how the conflicts, how the change, the differences between filmmaking and so forth. Very interesting, but not that well written, so it's a bit of a slog. But thankfully, it's in bite-sized pieces. And talking about bite-sized pieces, that's going to be the aim for the next week or so, I think. I've been reading Catherine Mansfield's short stories. This is the Wordsworth edition I got last week, and I'm enjoying that. It's a reread for the most part, so I'm enjoying it. And also, I've been reading, if I can find it here. I actually started today. Sorry. It's up here. This is the collected short fiction of Saki, Hector Hugh Munro. They're humorous pieces, and some of them are very short, like a page and a bit, so that's very handy, and I started reading that this morning. So that's very good. And I've pulled out some other things. Last year, excuse me, I started buying a few things every month that I sort of thought, well, I got to get around to these things. Penguins, the Black Penguins were one of them, partially spurred on by Steve Donohue's Penguin a Day series. Some of those that, yes, they're in my sort of wish list, and they've been sitting there for several years, and I've done nothing with them. So I've gone through, and every time that I see something that I thought, well, that's a reasonable price, it's less than cover, I'll get this, to a certain amount every month. And I did that with Blu-rays as well. So I did that from about February, and I think last month I did it was November, and then I've been made redundant, so I stopped that. But they're sort of piled here and everywhere. I got quite a few throughout the year. I was looking for something today, or no, was it today? Well, No, yesterday. Yes, sorry. Yesterday, days are blurring together. Yesterday, and I sort of uncovered a little cache of them. And it's sort of like excavation here with piles of books, as you can see, piles of books everywhere. Um, and the interesting thing was in that pile is Sir John Mandeville's travels that was mentioned in Michael Schmidt's book. So I've pulled that out. It is something I want to reread. It's been a long time, but whether I'll get to it this week, but it's there, and there are short bits in it, so that can be done. I've also got the complete Canterbury Tales, the Penguin edition. It's a big honkin' book. And the reason I pulled that out as a possibility, even though it's not that bite size in a sense, is because I'm doing a buddy read with a few booktubers for Dan Simmons' Hyperion, and the structure is from Canterbury Tales. And it's so long. I've never actually read, to be honest, the complete Canterbury Tales. So, and even when I read that, I couldn't remember if there was more than just structure. So I thought, well, it might be kind of neat because somebody, a viewer, put a note in to say that when he was doing this in school, he also read Hyperion. So I thought, yeah, that's kind of cool. Whether I'll get to that is another question. But another thing that, well, this was what I was looking for, and it was based on Matthew at the Maybury Book Club is doing a shelf tour, and he pulled out and he showed the letters from my windmill by Alphonse Daudet, and he says it's one of his favorites, and it's mine as well. I've read this several times, but again, it probably late 80s, early 90s was the last time that I read it. So again, this is one of the things that I decided to buy last year, and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna pull that out. I'm gonna read that slowly. I'm gonna start reading. That's one of the short things. I also have the 3 volumes of the 1001 Nights or Arabian Nights. This is volume 1. They're fairly short. It'd be interesting maybe to do one a night if I could sustain that for 1001 Nights. That would actually be kind of cool. And also I pulled something else out which I would like to get back to again, but I read an abridged version again of this long time ago. But I thought, well, I do need to read this in its entirety. Is Orlando Furioso by Ludovico Ariosto, and this is part 1. It's a massive, massive, 1700 page epic poem, Italian poem. So yeah, so that's, some of this is going to furnish my reading this coming week. The aim is going to be mostly small bits at small times for other things that I need to do. So I need to be doing some other stuff as well. But I did receive a book in the post today. This is not a mail haul. It's not a book haul. This is something that I pre-ordered in September from off of Wordery, and that was all paid for, so I didn't even have to worry about it. I don't even know if I could have got my money back, but it was so cheap, and I've been waiting for it. I thought the publication date was earlier in January here, and when I checked it again, it says, well, we're not sure when it's going to be released. But it popped up today I wasn't expecting it. And it is Rorke's Drift and Isandlwana minute by minute. And it's sort of interesting. I received it on the day today, which is 22nd of January. And the Battle of Isandlwana happened on 22nd of January in 1879. So that's quite kind of nice. And I just thought, well, when was this released? So the first thing I did, just the easiest thing is Amazon to check, and it still says not yet published, pre-order. Interesting. But this is by Greenhill Books. It's short, but it looks pretty good. It's not so much minute by minute. It's like they don't have like here 12:35, 12:25, and then 12:26. They go 12:25, then 12:30, 12:45, 1 o'clock, 1:25. But it's telling you what's happened in between. There's maps and photos. So that'll be kind of nice to look through at some point. So yeah, there it is, folks. That's my reading that I've done this past week, and what I hope to get to, little bits and pieces. I'll be jumping between books for this week and maybe for the next couple weeks, before digging into something a little more meatier. So I hope everybody's doing well. I'll be back on Sunday, at the latest. At least I hope to, unless something happens, with my Q&A. It's time to do the answers for my 1 year on BookTube. And so there's more than just the 22nd. Cause I'm pretty sure it was the 22nd that I started it. It's sort of it was a coincidence with Isla Duana, especially a battle that sort of lost. So I hope I don't lose this battle. But anyway, folks, I'll be back, and I hope you have a good weekend. Take care.